Today I'm going to show you how to make 3 different dog chew toys out of the materials in front of you. We're going to use the leg of some old denim, scraps from old t-shirts, and a few old socks. You will need 2 socks for 1 toy, at least 1 leg and 1 long strip of denim for the denim toy, and however many strips of t-shirt you think you'll need for this toy. You'll also need a sewing kit, a ruler or some measuring tape, and a pair of sharp scissors that cut well. We're going to start with the denim chew toy first. I'm going to cut off 1 leg of these jeans, probably to about knee length. And you're just going to cut straight across so that you end up with like a tube. So the whole leg, you don't want to cut it any more than this for now. And I'll go ahead and cut my long strip before I get started. And now that I have my donut rolled, I can see how wide of a strip I need. It's still about more like 2 inches. So I'm gonna roughly start maybe about 3.5 inches for my strip, because you can cut it shorter or thinner if you need to. Okay, now that I've cut a strip of denim that is the entire length of the leg, I think this will be enough to cover this whole donut that I've made. I'm going to get my sewing kit and grab a needle and some thread. It doesn't really matter which color you choose. Looks like I have one that's already threaded with some black, so I'll probably use that. Okay. So I'm gonna turn my denim strip upside down so that I get a little bit of color contrast. And I'm gonna take the back side of this last roll as my point as my like anchor for sewing this strip in. So I'm just gonna put this strip just about halfway down, and just make a really easy little loop in here just to anchor it in place. It doesn't need to be super fancy. That's probably good. We just don't want it going anywhere. Tie that off. Okay, now that that's anchored in place, I'm going to take my strip, pull it a little tightly, bring it through the bottom and back up. You can make these wraps as tight or as loose as you want. It's really up to you. Or maybe consider the width or how big your dog's mouth is. So if they have a small mouth, you might want to make it a little tighter. If you have a larger dog that really likes to chew, maybe it's not as big of a consideration to think about. how thick or big this toy is. And you can make your wraps really nicely even so that the whole toy is covered, like this, all the way around. Or in my case, this is a pretty wide jean leg, so I'm actually going to leave some space like this. That way I know that I will get this denim strip all the way around without having to use another one. Pull it tight again. I'm going to work my way around. Okay, back where I started, I had enough of this strip to make it all the way across or around. And now I'm at the end. So again, I'm going to want to sew this in place. So I'm going to get my needle and thread back out and make a quick stitch. There you go. You might need to trim up. I do have some of these loose threads that are coming off the denim. So you might need to trim that up a little bit. Just pulling on them until they're no longer loose. And then cutting them off at the ends. You don't have to sew the end if you have enough to kind of wrap a few times. You can just tuck the pieces in place. So I could have tucked this one underneath this strap to kind of anchor it. But again, if you're worried about it kind of coming apart when your dog is playing with it, then sewing that last stitch is pretty good. So I'm just going to quickly trim these up. And there you go. Next, I'm going to show you how to make the chew toy out of some strips of t-shirt material. I'm going to cut the backs of these shirts and then take strips of that. And for this project, you will actually, you'll probably need a little bit of tape. So I grabbed some painter's tape there. And I'm just going to cut along the seams. Make sure you cut off any tags. And I'm going to leave the hemming, at least for the top and the bottom, to kind of keep the fabric from fraying. But I am going to cut these off. So here's my first strip. It's kind of short. This one might not get used. I'm going to set it aside. I'm going to flip it and make my cut along the fold again. I'm going to cut all the way, so I cut this a little bit, but there's a second fold in here. I'm just going to keep cutting down from the innermost fold and try to keep it together as much as I can so that I know my cuts are a little more even. Okay, and don't forget to do it on this side. So I have a few strips already cut, but over here I still have a couple folds. So again, I'm going to go through to the innermost fold and start cutting down. So now I have several strips, and depending on how large you want the toy to be, you could even cut your strips a little bit thinner so you'd have more, or you can leave it as wide as you want. I think I'm going to leave it at this length. I'm going to go ahead and put these aside and grab another color. So again, I'm going to kind of fold this and then cut, or if you really want your strips to be even, you can use your ruler to kind of make your cuts more precise. I'm just going to take one of these strips and make a rough measurement for the width. I have 11 strips total. So I'm going to grab and separate out about 2 of each color. Oh, I got a short one here, so that's going to have to go aside. I have 10 strips now. Luckily, I have more fabric if I think I need it. You can mix up the colors as much as you want. I originally had 3 shirts, but since my dog is pretty small, I don't want to make too thick of a toy. So I think I'm just going to try with these 2 colors. Now for the very top, you want the tops to be even, so I will have some different length down here. But for the start, I want them all to be even. So I'm going to take these 2 strips again and kind of just mix them up and lay them on top of each other, with the ends as even as you can get them. They don't have to be super precise. If you have long strips of fabric, you can tie these into a knot at the top. But I don't think I have very much fabric because I'm going to start braiding this and it will get shorter. So I'm going to take one of those strips that were a little too short, and I'm going to tie off the top of these fabric strips with it. And you can get it as close to the end as you want. These will kind of, they'll be loose at the end. Tie it really tight. Knot it a few times. You can even wrap it around the back. Make a knot there too. Then you can just leave it loose or trim as much as you want off. Now here's where some tape might come in handy. I'm going to try to tape the top of this as tightly as possible so it doesn't go anywhere when I start braiding. And then separate the strips out into roughly 3 different strands to braid. So I have 10. I'm going to make sure that I get them roughly spaced out. And then just start braiding. You can pull it as tightly as you want, or you can make it a little looser. It's really up to you what you think your dog might like as far as chewing. Again, if you make it really tight, then this is going to be harder. If you have it a little bit looser, it will be a little softer and more pillowy. So if you have an aggressive chewer, you might want to make it tight. If you have a dog that has a smaller mouth, you might want to make it a little softer for them to chew on. I'm going to do like a medium, kind of in the middle. Not too loose, not too tight. And you can even go back and kind of pull these out a little bit to make them a little looser. And about here is where I'm going to move my tape. You can go all the way until you start running out of fabric. So I want roughly the same amount at the bottom as I have at the top. So I'm going to stop here. I have a few short ends down here with this this colored fabric. And take another strip. And tie it off. Then I'm going to trim these final pieces. You have a nice braided chew toy. For the sock toy, you need your 2 socks, some scissors, and a needle with thread. The sock's going to go in the middle. That's why I have 2 different ones. So this one's old and worn out, has a hole. This is going to kind of be the middle of the sock, and this one's going to go over it. If you have a pair of, or one really thick sock, or even a really small dog, you could just use one. I'm going to show you how to make this toy with 2. First, we're going to cut off the toes of the sock. We're going to do that for each one. This is very similar to the Denim toy, except it's going to be a lot softer and smaller. Once you've cut off the toes, you're going to take the sock that's going to go in the middle first. And I'm going to start with the hem side. I'm going to roll it into a little donut, just like our Denim toy. And try to keep it even. And then with this end, you just want it to kind of just fold over. There we go. Then we're going to take our outside sock and turn it inside out. And if you're using an ankle sock like I am, the heel might get in your way as you get towards the top. So you might want to do a sock that's a little bit longer, and then you won't have to worry about seeing the heel as much. Also keep in mind, if you're using thicker socks, this heel might also kind of give you trouble, just because the sock is relatively the same width except for at the heel. There's a little bit of extra fabric, so you might get a little bit of a bumpy sock depending on how thick or how big your heel is. And I'm going to stick this donut on the bottom of this sock, just over it like this. And then kind of move it to the bottom so I have roughly even amount of material to start with. And we're going to roll it onto itself. And I'm going to continue to try to make it as even as possible. Getting to my heel, so you're going to see that it's going to give me a little bit of trouble. It's going to kind of deform the shape of my sock a bit. And that's okay. Now we're at the end, and I've chosen to leave the hemmed part for the top because you can just fold it over and it makes like a nice hemmed edge. Whereas if you use the part that's cut off at the bottom, you'll get a little bit of fraying like in our dog toy or our Denim toy. And then just kind of shape it. You can see there's my heel, so it's not as even as if I had a longer sock. I'm just going to shape it a bit. And there you go. Again, if you have an aggressive chewer or if you're worried about this rolling backwards and coming undone, you can make some small stitches along the hem, which is what I'm going to do now. And you're done. So these are the 3 toys that I made. As you can see, they vary in size, and the difference in material also makes their durability variable. So this one's small and soft. This is perfect for a smaller dog or a dog that plays really gentle. This one is perfect for those tug of war games with your pet. And then if you have a large dog or an aggressive chewer, this Denim toy is a lot tougher and thicker than these, so this might be great for your pet too. Let's see how Chippy likes them.
Happy holidays!